Black wife texted her. He broke my arm, sent a wrong number. Korean Mafia boss replied, "Don't move, I'm coming." I couldn't stop shaking. Every breath sent hot knives through my ribs. But it was nothing compared to the sickening angle of my right arm, broken, definitely broken. The bathroom tile was cold against my legs as I huddled against the tub, trying to make myself smaller, trying to disappear. The pounding on the door matched the throbbing in my skull. "Amara, open this goddamn door, Marcus." My husband, the man who'd promised to love and cherish me 6 years ago, the man who just thrown me into our glass coffee table because dinner was cold. "Baby, I'm sorry. You know I didn't mean it. Just open the door." His voice shifted from rage to that syrupy sweetness that always came after. That voice used to work. Used to make me believe maybe this time he meant it. Maybe this time he'd change. But you can only hear those lies so many times before they stop working. I fumbled for my phone with my left hand, my right arm cradled uselessly against my chest. The screen was cracked just like my trust, just like my heart, just like my bones. I needed my mama. She'd warned me, God, she'd warned me about Marcus. Said his charm was like antifreeze, sweet and deadly. "Don't you make me break down this door, Amara." My vision blurred, partly from tears, partly from where his fist had connected with my eye socket. I pulled up my contacts trying to find Mom. My fingers left smears of blood on the screen. Blood from the cuts on my arms, blood from my split lip. I pressed what I thought was her contact and started typing with my thumb, "Mama. He broke my arm, I'm trapped in bathroom. He's going to kill me this time, please help. 2453 Westfield Apartments, Unit 17. I hit send and prayed. The bathroom door shuddered as Marcus slammed his shoulder against it. The cheap lock wouldn't hold much longer. My phone buzzed. Who is this? Wrong number. My heart plummeted. No, not now. Not when I needed help more than I'd ever needed it in my life. I'd mistyped or hit the wrong contact. Stupid mistake that might cost me my life. Amara, I'm counting to 3. I typed again frantically. Please help. Husband broke my arm. He's trying to break down bathroom door. I'm scared. Another buzz. Don't move. I'm coming. Address again. I didn't know who this person was, but they were my only hope. I sent the address again. Adding, please hurry, please don't call police. His brother is a cop, they won't help. I'd learned that lesson last time. Officer Reynolds, Marcus's brother, had stood in our living room looking at my bruised face and asked what I'd done to provoke his little brother. Said, sometimes women need to learn when to shut their mouths. When the response came back, stay hidden 10 minutes, hold on 10 minutes, I'd be dead in 10 minutes. The bathroom door wasn't going to last 3 more seconds. 2, 3. The door splintered inward. Marcus filled the door frame, his 62 frame heaving with exertion and rage. His eyes weren't even human anymore, just flat black discs of hatred. I'd seen that look before. It meant he wasn't going to stop until something broke. Usually me. Who the fuck are you texting? He lunged for the phone, grabbing my broken arm to pull me up. The pain was blinding, white hot. And total, I screamed raw and animal. The sound didn't even seem human. He snatched the phone, scrolling through the messages, his face contorting. Who the fuck is this? Who are you texting, you stupid bitch? Wrong number. I gasped through the pain. I was trying to text Mama. He slapped me hard enough that I tasted fresh blood. You think I'm stupid? You calling for help? Nobody's going to help you, Amara. Nobody. You're mine. I remember thinking as he dragged me by my hair from the bathroom into our bedroom that I was going to die. That this man I'd loved, this man I'd built a life with was going to be the death of me. And the worst part was that I'd let it happen. I'd stayed after the first slap, after the first punch, after the first I'm sorry that meant nothing. Marcus threw me onto the bed and I bounced like a broken doll, my arms screaming in protest. He was pacing, running his hands through his close cropped hair, muttering about how I was making him do this. How it was my fault, always my fault. You need to learn, Amara. You need to understand who's in charge. He was taking off his belt when we both heard it. Car doors slamming, multiple sets of footsteps, heavy, determined, coming up the exterior stairs to our second-floor apartment. Marcus froze. Who the fuck? The front door didn't open. It was simply removed. The entire frame splintering with a sound like a gunshot. Marcus' eyes went wide. And for the first time since I'd known him, I saw fear flash across his face. He reached for the bedside drawer where he kept his gun. Too late. They moved like shadows. 3 men in dark suits entering our bedroom with the silent efficiency of predators. But it was the 4th man who made my breath catch. He wasn't particularly tall, maybe 510. But he filled the room with a presence that seemed to suck all the oxygen out. Impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than our rent, with features that seemed carved from stone. His eyes swept over me, taking in my broken arm, my bleeding face, before settling on Marcus with a cold intensity that made me shiver. Mr. Johnson. His voice carried the faintest accent, his words precise and measured. You appear to be making a serious mistake. Marcus found his voice. Drawing himself up, trying to reclaim the power he was used to wielding in this apartment. Who the fuck are you? This is private property. You can't just— I've never seen someone move so fast. 1 second the man was standing in the doorway. The next he was inches from Marcus, one hand around his throat. My name is Jason Kim. Your wife texted me for help. I've come to provide it. I watched as Marcus' face turned purple. His eyes bulging. Jason wasn't squeezing hard enough to cut off air completely, just enough to establish control. One of the other men approached me, his movements careful. Non-threatening, Mrs. Johnson. I mean you, Dr. Park is waiting downstairs. May I help you up? I nodded, unable to find my voice. Minyu gently supported my left side as I slid off the bed. Careful not to jostle my broken arm, as we moved toward the door, I heard Jason speaking to Marcus. His voice so soft I barely caught the words. If you ever come near her again, they will never find your body. Do you understand me? I didn't hear Marcus's reply. Minyu was guiding me through our destroyed living room, past the overturned coffee table where this nightmare had started. Another man in a dark suit opened what remained of our front door, his face expressionless as we passed. In the parking lot, a black Escalade idled, its windows tinted to mirror darkness. A middle-aged Korean man stood beside it, a medical bag in his hand. Mrs. Johnson, I'm Dr. Park. Let's get you comfortable and I'll examine your injuries. The back of the SUV had been modified. The seats extended into something resembling a medical examination table. Dr. Park helped me inside, his hands gentle but confident, as he carefully splinted my arm to stabilize it for transport. I found my voice. How? Who? I couldn't formulate a coherent question, Doctor. Park smiled slightly as he worked. Mr. Kim received your message. He takes such matters very seriously, but I don't know him. I texted a wrong number. Sometimes fate works in unexpected ways. Minutes later, Jason emerged from the apartment building, adjusting his cuffs as if he'd just finished a business meeting rather than a confrontation. He slid into the front passenger seat of the Escalade, and we pulled away from the apartment complex that had been my prison for the past 6 years. I never went back, never saw Marcus again, never had to. That night is etched into my memory like acid on metal, painful, permanent, transformative. The pain in my arm, the fear that had become so familiar I'd stopped recognizing it as abnormal. And then the surreal rescue by a man I'd never met, whose number I'd texted by mistake. Dr. Park took me to a private clinic where they X-rayed my arm, confirming what I already knew: clean breaks of both the radius and ulna, 3 cracked ribs, mild concussion, lacerations requiring 12 stitches total, contusions covering 20% of my body. All documented, photographed, cataloged with clinical precision for the police report, Dr. Park said. Though I never asked for one, no police, I insisted. His brother, Mr. Kim, has connections that supersede local law enforcement. Dr. Park assured me, the documentation is for your protection should you need it. But I don't believe Mr. Johnson will be a problem again. They took me to an apartment in a high-rise downtown, the kind of building I'd walk past and wonder who lived behind those floor-to-ceiling windows with views that made the city look like a circuit board of lights. The answer, apparently, was me. At least temporarily, you'll be safe here. Minyu explained as he showed me around the 2-bedroom space that made my former apartment look like a storage closet. The building has security and will have someone on this floor at all times, Mr. Kim's instructions. I sat on the edge of the pristine white couch, my arm in a cast, my body buzzing with pain medication, and finally asked the question that had been circling my mind since the moment I received that first text reply: why is he helping me? I'm nobody to him. Minyu's expression softened slightly. Mr. Kim has very specific views about men who abuse women. Let's leave it at that for now. You should rest, Mrs. Johnson. There are clothes in your size in the bedroom. Anything else you need, just call this number. He placed a new iPhone on the coffee table. It's programmed with secure contacts only. That first night alone in that sterile, beautiful apartment, I cried until there was nothing left. Cried for the woman I used to be. The vibrant art therapist with dreams and plans. Cried for the years I'd lost to fear. Cried for the shame I'd carried, believing somehow that I deserved what Marcus did to me. Cried because I'd been rescued by a stranger when the people who should have protected me, the police, the system, even some of my friends, had failed me completely. I didn't meet Jason again until 3 days later. I was sitting on the balcony watching the sunset turn the glass buildings into towers of fire when there was a soft knock at the door. Minyu entered first, scanning the apartment out of habit before holding the door open. Jason Kim looked different in daylight, younger than I'd initially thought, maybe mid-30s, with features that spoke of discipline and control rather than cruelty. He carried a large bag that smelled like heaven. Mrs. Johnson, he said with a slight bow of his head. I hope I'm not disturbing you. I brought food, Korean. I thought perhaps you might be tired of takeout. That was how I found myself sharing dinner with a man who I was increasingly certain was involved in activities well beyond the bounds of legal business. The food was incredible, dishes whose names I couldn't pronounce, but whose flavors made my taste buds sing after days of bland hospital food and half-eaten delivery meals. My grandmother's recipes, he explained. Watching me with what seemed like satisfaction as I devoured a spicy stew, she always said, "Food heals more than the body. Your grandmother sounds wise." I said, realizing it was the first genuine conversation I'd had with anyone in days, maybe longer. "She is terrifying but wise." A small smile touched his lips, transforming his severe features into something almost approachable. "How is your arm?" Broken, I attempted humor, but I hear that's what happens when someone throws you into a glass table. His eyes hardened, the brief softness vanishing. "Yes, that is indeed what happens." An uncomfortable silence fell. I stared down at my bowl, suddenly aware that I knew nothing about this man except that he had somehow materialized like an avenging angel when I needed help most desperately. "Mr. Kim Jason, please, Jason. I don't know how to thank you. I don't know why you helped me. I don't know what happens next, but I need to understand. Who are you?" He considered me for a long moment, his dark eyes unreadable. "I'm someone who received a text message from a woman in danger. The rest is complicated. I'm good with complicated. I just lived 6 years of it." Something like respect flickered across his face. "I own businesses throughout the city. Some restaurants, some clubs, some real estate. My family has been here for 2 generations, building connections, establishing ourselves. Breaking down doors to rescue women you've never met is not a regular service we provide." Another ghost of a smile, "But I have resources. And I have very particular feelings about men who think strength means brutality toward those they claim to love." We ate in silence for a while, the city darkening outside the windows, lights blinking on like stars coming out one by one. "What will you do now, Amara?" He asked finally. No one had asked me that question in years. What I wanted, what my plans were. Marcus had systematically eliminated any future beyond his control. "I don't know," I admitted. "I was an art therapist before. I worked with traumatized children, helping them express what they couldn't say in words. But I haven't practiced in years." Marcus said it was a waste of time. Marcus sounds like he was wrong about many things. A laugh escaped me, bitter, surprised, real. Yes, he was. "I fund a community center in the Eastern District," Jason said, his tone casual but his eyes intent on my face. "They've been looking for someone to develop programs for children affected by community violence. When your arm heals, perhaps you would consider it." And just like that, like a door opening where I'd seen only wall, possibility entered my life again. The next few weeks developed a rhythm. My arm healed slowly, my heart even slower. Jason visited every few days. Sometimes bringing food, sometimes books, sometimes just sitting in comfortable silence while we both worked. Him on his laptop, me sketching left-handed, rebuilding atrophied skills. I learned about him in pieces, fragments shared between bites of bulgogi or over steaming cups of barley tea. How his grandfather had come to America with nothing but determination. How his father had built legitimate businesses alongside other enterprises that Jason alluded to but never specified. How at 27, Jason had inherited it all when his father died under circumstances that made his jaw tighten when I asked. He asked about me too, really listened when I told him about growing up in Louisiana, my mama working 3 jobs after Daddy died, how art had saved me during those dark years, how I'd met Marcus during my internship at the hospital where he worked as an administrator, his charm and confidence sweeping me off my feet. When did it change? Jason asked one evening, his voice gentle but his eyes sharp so gradually I almost didn't notice. I admitted, a comment about my clothes, suggestions about my friends, questions about where I'd been, who I'd talked to. By the time he hit me the first time, I was already isolated enough that I had nowhere to go. And he was so sorry afterward, so loving until the next time, and the next. Jason's hand rested on the table between us, his knuckles white. "He will never touch you again." I believed him. There was something about Jason Kim that made promises feel like physical things. Solid, immutable facts rather than words that could be broken. When my cast came off 6 weeks after that night, Jason took me to the community center he'd mentioned. The Eastern Sun Youth Center occupied a renovated warehouse in a neighborhood that had seen better days. Inside, though, was an oasis, bright colors, art on the walls, spaces designed for learning, playing, creating. "We serve about 200 children weekly," the director, Mrs. Cho, explained as she showed me around. "Many from households affected by addiction, incarceration, or domestic violence. They need a safe space and they need ways to process their experiences." I found myself nodding, ideas already forming, Art therapy could help with that, non-verbal expression for things too painful to put into words. Exactly what we've been looking for, Mrs. Cho smiled. When can you start? I looked at Jason, who was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. Is this a real job offer or a charity case? Mrs. Cho looked offended, Mr. Kim funds our building, not our hiring decisions. We've been looking for someone with your qualifications for months. The salary is competitive. Though I warn you, working with our children can be challenging. I'm not afraid of challenges. I said, feeling something unfamiliar bloom in my chest, hope maybe, or purpose. I can start next week. Later, as Jason drove us back downtown in his sleek black Genesis, I turned to study his profile. Thank you. I said simply, for what? Mrs. Cho makes her own hiring decisions, as she made quite clear, for making it possible. For showing me there could be an after. His hands tightened slightly on the steering wheel. There is always an after, Amara. Sometimes we just need help finding the door to it. Working at Eastern Sun gave me back pieces of myself I'd forgotten existed. The first time I led an art therapy session, watching children translate their pain into color and shape, I felt like I'd found my heartbeat again. After years of flatline, I came home to the apartment I still thought of as temporary, exhausted but alive in ways I hadn't been since before Marcus, Jason, and I fell into a new pattern. He'd come by in the evenings when he could, bringing dinner, asking about my day, telling me carefully edited versions of his. Sometimes he'd bring films, Korean cinema that opened windows into his cultural heritage. Sometimes we just talk. Our conversations ranging from childhood memories to philosophical debates about art's purpose in healing. I knew there were things he wasn't telling me. Sometimes his phone would ring and he'd step onto the balcony, speaking rapid-fire Korean in a tone that made me glad I couldn't understand. Sometimes he'd cancel our plans with vague explanations about business matters. Once he arrived with a fading bruise along his jawline that he dismissed as a misunderstanding that has been clarified. I wasn't naive. I'd gathered enough to understand that Jason Kim straddled worlds, one foot in legitimate enterprise, one in something darker. The way people deferred to him, the constant presence of Minyu or one of the other suits, the fact that Marcus had seemingly vanished from the face of the earth. But I also saw him crouch down to high-five the children at the center, watched him listen with genuine interest as a 7-year-old explained her crayon masterpiece. Felt the gentle way he'd sometimes touch my shoulder or hand, always brief, always respectful, always leaving me wanting more. 3 months after that desperate wrong number text, I finally asked the question that had been growing between us. What are we doing, Jason? We were on the balcony, the city spread below us like a carpet of lights. He turned from the railing to face me, his expression carefully neutral. What do you mean? This, us, the dinners, the conversations, the way you look at me when you think I don't notice. Something flickered in his eyes, vulnerability perhaps, or uncertainty, rare emotions on a face that usually revealed only what he chose to show. What do you want us to be doing? He countered softly, I'm not sure. I just got out of a marriage that nearly killed me. I'm living in an apartment you provide, working at a center you fund. The power imbalance here is significant. He nodded slowly, a valid concern. What would make you feel more equal? I hadn't expected that response, had prepared for denial or deflection. I need my own place. I said firmly, something I pay for myself. I need to know that whatever this is between us, it's because I choose it freely, not because I owe you. You owe me nothing, Amara, nothing, maybe not in your mind, but in mine you saved my life. That creates a debt whether you acknowledge it or not. He considered this, his expression thoughtful, and if you had your own place, your own complete independence, then I could figure out what I want, who I want, without confusion. I'll have Minyu arrange viewings of apartments tomorrow. Just like that, no argument, no attempt to convince me otherwise, simple acceptance of my need for autonomy. And somehow that made me want him more than any persuasion could have. I found a small but sunny one-bedroom in a neighborhood close enough to the center that I could walk to work. The rent stretched my new salary thin, but it was mine. Every lamp I placed, every picture I hung was a declaration. This is Amara's space. Amara's life, Amara's choice. The first night there, I expected to feel triumphant. Instead, I felt something closer to loss. The silence seemed emptier without the possibility of Jason's knock at the door. I needn't have worried. The next evening, my phone buzzed with a text. May I bring dinner tomorrow? Your choice of cuisine. We established new patterns. He'd come to my apartment 2 or 3 evenings a week. Or sometimes I'd go to his stunning penthouse that somehow managed to be both minimalist and warm with touches of his heritage throughout. We explored the city together. Restaurants, galleries, parks I'd never visited despite living here for years. Marcus had kept my world small. Jason seemed determined to expand it infinitely. The first time he kissed me was 4 months after I moved into my own place. We'd been to a gallery opening featuring Korean-American artists, and he'd watched me with quiet amusement as I debated technique with one of the painters, my hands gesturing expressively as I made my point. What? I'd asked when I caught him staring, "You're magnificent when you're passionate." He said simply later outside my apartment door. He'd paused, his eyes searching mine. "May I kiss you, Amara?" The fact that he asked, that he gave me the choice, made my answer inevitable. Yes, his lips were gentle, the kiss brief but electrifying. He pulled back, studying my reaction, and I realized he was giving me space to change my mind, to set boundaries, to be in control. Instead, I pulled him back to me, kissing him with all the pent-up desire I'd been denying for months. When we finally separated, both breathing hard, his usual composure was deliciously ruffled. "I've wanted to do that since the night you drew that incredible sunset," he admitted, his voice rougher than I'd ever heard it. "That was 2 months ago. I'm a patient man, not too patient, I hope," I replied, surprising myself with my boldness. His smile was slow and promising, "Only as patient as you need me to be." I'd worried that intimacy might trigger memories of Marcus, the way sex had become just another tool of control in his arsenal. But Jason approached my body with the same careful attention he gave everything important, learning what pleased me, what made me comfortable, what made me forget my own name. When I flinched the first time, his hand moved too quickly toward my face. He froze immediately, then slowly, deliberately placed my hand on his face instead, giving me control when certain positions made me tense with remembered pain. He adjusted without comment or judgment, when nightmares sometimes woke me. He'd hold me without pressing for details, his heartbeat steady under my ear until I could sleep again. It wasn't perfect. We argued about his overprotectiveness, about the parts of his business he still wouldn't discuss, about my insistence on taking the subway despite his security concerns. We came from different worlds with different expectations and experiences, but beneath it all was a foundation of respect that I'd never known with Marcus. Jason might disagree with me, but he never dismissed me. 6 months into our relationship, I met his grandmother, the formidable Halmoni who'd raised him after his mother's death. She was tiny and immaculate, her silver hair pulled into a perfect bun, her dark eyes missing nothing as they swept over me. "So," she said in Korean accented English, "you are the woman who has captured my grandson's heart with a wrong number." I guess I am," I stammered, shooting a desperate look at Jason, who appeared to be enjoying my discomfort. "Sit, eat, tell me about yourself." I expected an interrogation instead. She listened, really listened. As I told her about my work at the center, my art, my dreams of expanding the therapy program to more locations. She nodded occasionally, her eyes sharp. "You have survived much," she said finally. "It has made you strong, not bitter. This is good." She turned to Jason and said something rapid-fire in Korean that made him flush slightly. "What did she say?" I asked as we drove home later, that I should not waste time if I finally found someone worthy of our family name. My heart skipped. "Oh, Halmoni is very traditional, very direct. And what do you think?" He glanced at me, his eyes warm. "I think she is very wise." 2 weeks later, I was working late at the center, finishing a grant application that could fund an expansion of our program. The building was quiet, most of the staff gone, just security at the front desk. I was so absorbed in my work that I didn't notice the time until my phone buzzed with a text from Jason, "Working late. Want me to pick you up?" I glanced at the clock, almost 900 p.m. "Almost done," I replied, "just finishing this grant. I'll catch a ride when I'm done. I'll send menu, don't argue." I smiled, shaking my head at his protectiveness. It should have felt controlling after Marcus. But somehow it didn't, perhaps because I knew I could say no and Jason would listen. I turned back to my work, determined to finish the application before menu arrived. The sound of the office door opening barely registered. "I'll be ready in 5 minutes," I said, assuming it was menu. "Take your time, Mrs. Johnson," or is it still Johnson? Maybe it's Kim now. The voice froze my blood. "Not menu, Marcus." I looked up slowly, disbelieving. He stood in the doorway, thinner than I remembered, his eyes sunken, but burning with the same rage I'd fled nearly a year ago. In his hand was a gun, pointed steadily at me, surprised to see me. "Amara, bet your gangster boyfriend told you I was gone for good." His laugh was bitter, hollow. "Took me months to get out of the hole he threw me in, months to find you, but here we are, reunited at last." My heart hammered against my ribs, but something else rose alongside the fear. A cold, clear anger. This man had stolen years of my life, had broken my body and nearly my spirit. And here he was, thinking he could waltz back in and terrify me again. "What do you want, Marcus?" My voice was steadier than I expected. "What's mine, you? But first, I'm going to make your boyfriend pay for what he did to me." For thinking he could take what's mine, I slowly reached for my phone on the desk, but Marcus was faster, snatching it away. No calling for help this time, no Korean Mafia to save you. Just as like it should be, my mind raced. The security guard was at the front entrance, too far to hear anything. Minyu was on his way, but wouldn't arrive for at least 10. 10 minutes with an armed, enraged Marcus was 9 minutes too many. I remembered Jason's voice during one of the self-defense lessons he'd insisted on after I moved to my own apartment. If someone has a gun, they expect compliance. Sometimes that's the safest option. But if you believe they intend to harm you regardless, surprise becomes your weapon. How did you find me? I asked, playing for time, my eyes scanning the office for anything I could use. Followed one of Kim's men from that fancy apartment building. Wasn't hard. They think they're untouchable. Marcus moved further into the office, his gun never wavering. Stand up, we're leaving. I stood slowly, my hand brushing against the heavy ceramic mug on my desk. A gift from one of the children, painted with wobbly stars, not much of a weapon, but better than nothing, Marcus. This is insane, there are cameras everywhere. Security at the front, you can't just shut up. He snarled, grabbing my arm with his free hand. You don't tell me what I can and can't do anymore. You think I'm afraid of cameras. I'm already dead according to your boyfriend. What more can he do to me? As he pulled me toward the door, I let the mug fall from the desk. He instinctively glanced down at the noise just for a split second. But it was enough. I drove my knee up between his legs with every ounce of strength I possessed. Following Jason's training exactly, Marcus doubled over, his grip on my arm loosening, the gun dipping. I twisted away, grabbing the heavy desk lamp and swinging it with all my might at his head. It connected with a sickening thud, and he staggered, dropping to one knee. The gun clattered to the floor between us. We both lunged for it, his fingers closed around it first, but I didn't hesitate. I brought the lamp down again, this time on his hand. He howled in pain, the gun skittering under the desk. I kicked it further out of reach, then back toward the door, you bitch. Blood poured down the side of Marcus' face as he struggled to his feet. I'll kill you for that. No, you won't. I grabbed the emergency alarm button by the door. A precaution Jason had insisted on when funding renovations for the center. The shrieking wail filled the building instantly. Marcus charged at me. But I was ready this time. I sidestepped, using his momentum against him, as Jason had taught me, sending him crashing into the wall. He rebounded, throwing a wild punch that caught my shoulder. But missed my face. I struck back, not the ineffectual slaps of a victim, but the targeted strikes of someone who'd learned to defend herself. We were still struggling when the door burst open. Minyu stood there, his normally calm face transformed by cold fury. Behind him were two more of Jason's men. Weapons drawn, Marcus froze, his eyes darting between them like a cornered animal. Mrs. Kim. Minyu said formally, though Jason and I weren't married, are you injured? I'm fine, I said, backing away from Marcus, who had gone very still. He had a gun, it's under the desk. Minyu nodded to one of the men who retrieved the weapon. Mr. Kim is 2 minutes away. He asked that we secure the situation until he arrives. The calm, almost bureaucratic way he said it was somehow more terrifying than any threat. Marcus seemed to deflate, the rage in his eyes fading to something closer to fear. Listen, this is all a misunderstanding. Save it. I cut him off. There's no misunderstanding. You came here to hurt me, to use me to get to Jason. And you failed, just like you'll always fail because you're a coward who only knows how to hurt people weaker than you. Minyu's eyes widened slightly, perhaps surprised by my vehemence, or perhaps impressed. He gestured to his men who moved to flank Marcus. The police have been called, Minyu informed me, anonymous tip about an armed intruder. They'll find his weapon with his fingerprints. The security cameras will show him assaulting you. I understood what he wasn't saying, that this would be handled through legitimate channels, that Marcus would face legal consequences rather than disappearing again, that Jason was giving me this choice. When Jason arrived moments later, his face was a mask of controlled fury. He swept into the office, his eyes finding me first, scanning for injuries before shifting to Marcus with an intensity that made the air feel electrified. Are you hurt? He asked me, his voice gentle despite the storm in his eyes. No, I'm okay. I gestured to the lamp, now dented and smeared with blood. I remembered what you taught me. Something flickered across his face, pride, maybe, or relief. He reached out, his fingers just brushing my cheek. You're remarkable. Then he turned to Marcus, and all softness vanished. He spoke quietly, too quietly for me to hear the words, but I saw Marcus' face drain of color, saw him nod frantically. When police arrived 10 minutes later, they found a clear case of breaking and entering, attempted kidnapping, and assault. Marcus was taken away in handcuffs, his earlier bravado replaced by a defeated shuffle later that night in Jason's penthouse, as he gently applied ice to the bruise forming on my shoulder. I finally asked what he'd said to Marcus. I told him that this time he would face justice the American way. But if he ever came near you again, if he ever even spoke your name, he would face justice my way. His eyes met mine, serious and steady. I hoped that was the right choice. To let the legal system handle him. It was, I assured him, I don't want his blood on your hands or on mine. Jason studied my face. You fought back. You protected yourself until help arrived. I'm proud of you, Amara. But I'm sorry you had to face him again. I'm not, I realized, surprising myself, because this time I wasn't helpless. I wasn't a victim. I was just me. And that's someone worth fighting for. He pulled me gently into his arms, mindful of my bruised shoulder. You've always been worth fighting for. I knew it from your first text message, my wrong number. I smiled against his chest. Best mistake I ever made, not a mistake. He said softly, fate. 2 months later, Marcus pleaded guilty to multiple charges, accepting a plea deal that would keep him imprisoned for at least 7 years. The same week, my grant application was approved, allowing us to expand the art therapy program to 3 additional community centers across the city. And Jason proposed, not with grand gestures or public displays, but quietly on the balcony of the apartment where I'd begun to heal nearly a year earlier. He held out not a diamond, but a delicate jade ring that had belonged to his grandmother. She wanted you to have it, he said, his usually confident voice tinged with an uncertainty I rarely heard from him. If you'll accept it. If you'll accept me, with all my complications and contradictions. I looked at this man who had entered my life through a wrong number and become the right person in every way that mattered, who had never tried to own me or control me, but instead had helped me find my strength again. Yes, I said, holding out my hand, with all your complications and contradictions, just as you accept all of mine, as he slid the ring onto my finger. I thought about the desperate woman huddled in a bathroom nearly a year ago, typing a plea for help to the wrong number. I couldn't have imagined then that a Korean Mafia boss would respond, "Don't move, I'm coming," and proceed to not just save my life, but help me reclaim it entirely. Some would call it coincidence. Jason called it fate. I called it the beginning of a story I never could have written for myself. A story of healing, of strength found in unexpected places, and of love that didn't demand submission, but instead celebrated freedom. The wrong number had led me exactly where I needed to be.